everybody. This is John Alexander, and this is our first stream where we're going to actually go through and start talking about how I do the land business, how you might want to do the land business if this is what you're like to get into. A lot of you are buying and selling houses right now, and so I'll talk about some of the differences because there's a vast difference actually between flipping houses and flipping land. And others may have never flipped land at all, and you're thinking, well, how hard is that? Well, um, if you can buy and sell a car, you should be able to buy and sell land. It's not, as I said, it's not quite the same as flipping a house, buying and selling a house. It's more on the line of buying and selling a car than it is a house, and that's one of the, I guess, the first differences. But what I wanted to do is kind of like, first of all, go over a couple of different things that that I guess you need to know in order to get into the mindset of the seller that we're talking to, because the first part of this is really buying a property. So when we buy a property, we're able to make contact with the seller, make a quick presentation, and they either say yes or no. It's actually a pretty simple transaction in that way because it's a straight yes or no right off the bat, unlike a house. Now here's the big difference. Houses, when you buy a house, that's because the seller has already wanted to put the house up for sale and sell it. When you're buying land, that's not the case. It's almost never the case. In fact, I won't even buy property from a owner who's trying to sell their property because that person is just not the right, they're not in the right mental shape that I need them to be in. They are selling it much like a house. They're going to want full retail value. They're going to want all, they're going to have already done comps maybe. Maybe they listed it with a real estate agent. Maybe they've done all kinds of investing of their time into this property, and now they want to see a return on it. Conversely, the land I go after, it's not up for sale. The people don't want to sell it. They don't even want to think about the property anymore because most likely they've had it for a very long time, sometimes 20 to 30 years. Sometimes they inherited it from their parents. So this is not like a property where they've got it for now like a current investment feel like you do with a house. You live in a house, it's got value to you right now, and you expect to get some return out of it. A land is just the opposite. So here's the comparison I want you to bear in mind between land and houses. A house is to land as a car is to a bike. Now, that's probably the best example I can give you so that you understand the mental levels of the sellers that we're going after. There's a difference between a car and a bike, but even though they're both vehicles. So real estate is both houses and land, but it's not the same. Just like there's a difference between a car and a bike. So a car always has value, intrinsic value, basically like, and MLS has the listings of what they should go for and what they're selling for in your neighborhood. That's not the case with land. So it starts to be some differences right there. But so with a bike, people buy a bike, they ride it a couple times, and they put it in the garage. A car, you buy a car, you drive it every day. You're using it for work, you're going on trips every day, and then ultimately you say, okay, well, I'm going to trade it in, and there's a set value when I trade it in, just like when you're trading houses. You're going in from one house to the next. You're going to sell that one. The same realtor will handle both cases just like a car dealer does a car. But that's not the case with a bike. What happens when you try and sell a bike? Let's say you've had that bike for 5, 10, 20 years. And it's sitting in the garage. What is it? Where's the value compared to what a vehicle, same thing. Give me the same years, 10, 20, 30 years. Actually, vehicles will start to go up at some point, or bikes, they just really don't. So it just keeps getting worse and worse for the bike, just like it does for land. So the longer a piece of land goes undeveloped, It shrinks in value to some degree. I'm not saying this in every case because there's some in tight neighborhoods that's not the case. It'll go up and it'll stay there for forever at that one price, and that's the way it is actually in most. And I actually depend on that to some degree, but in the mindset of the owner, that's not the case. The mindset of the owner is, I've got this property. It's like a bike. It's sitting in the garage. I have to deal with taxes every year. I have to be thinking about it. What happens, if I die, who's going to take care of it? How's that going to be dealt with in my estate? These are the things that actually occur to people that make them say, well, I just want to clear my garage out. So when you clear out your garage, hey, it's time to sell everything, and it goes cheap, real cheap. So you do a garage sale. That bike, you might have paid $400 or $500 for the bike. 2 years later, not very long either, right? 2 years later, if you got 10, 20, 30 bucks for it, you're fine. You're fine. Just get it out and move on. That's the concept with land. That's why I love land so much more than houses. I can name my own price on land. I can't name my own price on houses. And that's really, when you get into this business, you really start to realize, wow, you really can name your price. I mean, wherever you start with your price, that's probably the area that you're going to end up in. And most of the time, I'm going to say most of the time, almost all of the time, once I give a seller the number, what I want to pay for a property, that's the number that we end up settling on. There's really no negotiation like there is on a house or a car or something. It's like, well, would you take $25 for the bike? Oh, yeah, well, sure. Just give me 25 bucks. I don't want to haggle with that. I don't want to run the risk of losing this deal with you. So it's rare that if I negotiate on a piece of property. It's just, so we get to name our own price. And because we name our own price, all we really have to do is figure out, well, what can I sell that land for fast? Because that's the key here. Fast, and then that tells me where I need to buy it at. There's a couple of things we'll cover as far as figuring that out, exactly where you should buy at, and figuring out, well, how do I make this deal happen? Especially if you have limited funds. And so we'll show you some leveraging. I'll show you some leveraging techniques coming up in another episode. On this first one, I just want to get the basis and the concept out, and I want to show you a great tool that I'm using. This is a great tool that anybody can use anywhere in America. In fact, if you aren't even in America, you could be in Australia or in England or wherever watching this, and you can grab this tool, and we're about to cover this tool in a second, and you could actually flip land here, wherever you decide that you want to flip the land at, using this as your basic tool for finding properties and getting your mailing list going. And we'll also go into mailing list, and we'll go into the concepts. But when you start out, I'm not a big believer in starting out first with a mailing list. I would recommend that a person just starting out in the business start out with I guess it's not really a mailing list. It will be in a spreadsheet maybe, when you get it off of these software things, but that's just you can start out basically with a letter, an envelope, a piece of paper, a Word document, and that's kind of where you can start with and get some information. Let's go to chat, find out what's going on. Team Pack, what if the owner owes more in back taxes than the lot is worth? Well, one of the first things I'll tell you is that I don't deal in back tax situations. I don't really go after that market either, because it's kind of saturated. It's sort of like the wholesalers in the real estate market. Everybody's going after back tax properties. I don't like them. I will get them every once in a while, but it's got to make sense. For example, I picked up a piece that is 7 acres, and I picked it up for steel, but there's $5,000 owed in back taxes. The upside is that's a $100,000 piece of property. So I bought it on contingency that I will assume the taxes. So to answer your question, you can buy a property where you are stating to them, and actually you can put it right into the deed, that you are buying up a property and you're accepting the future, basically responsibility of paying all property taxes, and you can probably write into your deed anything you want. I might have a deed here we can look at. Um, let me pop it up and see. Let me go to studio mode for a second and see if I can. Most of mine are standard. Most of my contracts are standard that I'm actually going to do that and say that in. Okay, so here's a classic example. So this is my um, contract here, and or not the contract, but this is, and the same statement will be in the contract, but basically, this will this statement right here um, will basically, it says grantee assumes all unpaid ad valorem taxes and all other property assessments for the existing year and all prior years. So that's a big chunk to take off, but I will take it off because I've done my research. You'll do your research and you'll find out exactly what it is, and then you can kind of go from there. Um, the the whole point of that is that when you buy a property, you've done the proper research on it, and you know what's owed on it, and so if it makes sense, then you're able to assume the existing taxes, and then here's how you play that. When you sell it, you leave it unpaid. All right, since you're not having to close on it yet, because what we do is we flip property, right? So we're not having to pay anything up front. So what we're doing is we are letting when the sale closes where you resell it to your ultimate end buyer, that money then paying for the property flows into your pocket, and at that point, right at the point of closing, you're able to pay the property tax and get it caught up. And so that's how I do it. And most of the time, the person I'm selling to, I mean, it doesn't matter to them. They're paying me a set price for the property. It has nothing to do with taxes. Although I'm going to take that out of that profit I'm making, and then I'm caught up. Afro Investor, hey, welcome. Hello, John. Happy New Year. Hey, Happy New Year to everybody. We're going to start, I think, a great new year. The market is pumping out there, and we'll see. We got half the investors out there saying, "Hey, it's sliding," and yeah, I mean, I can certainly see where the prices are sliding. But I've seen this also before, and you kind of have to wait until March to kind of figure it out. All right, so they can slide some, but we'll know by March where we are, because the March numbers for existing home sales will come out, and which is showing our February sales, and that's the key month. That's how you figured out how your year is going to go. Is it up? Is it down? And March numbers, if they're down, we're in trouble. That means it's going to keep going down the rest of the year. Are you actually closing on these land deals, then reselling, or just controlling, then assigning and releasing your contract? No, I close on every one of them. We in the land business, again, unlike the house business where you do a lot of assigning there and you don't ever have to close, that's not the case in our side of the business. In our side of the business, we're dealing with different kinds of numbers, and we'll get into that because it blow your mind once you understand the numbers and how important that is. But no, you're able to double close these. And so you're buying them and then you're reselling them, and you're using all the money that's being generated to make the deal happen. So it's rare that you have to come out of your pocket at closing with money. I'm going to say the majority of the time. I mean, once you start making some money, then it's just sometimes easier to say, oh, okay, well, I just, that's $3,000. I'll just pay it out of my pocket. But a lot of these lots can be bought for 3 to 6 to 7,000, sometimes 10. So this is the range, and then you're selling them for 12, 15, 20, and maybe max it out at 30. So that's a real sweet range in there. So you're buying, and basically in essence, you're doubling the money that you're making. The profit that's sitting there is double. I just bought 5 lots On average, I paid about $7,000 per lot. Bought them all at one time from one owner. I sold them all within 1 week at essentially double the price of each of them. So that's the kind of, and I leveraged that money coming in. So I'll show you and get into details on how to leverage that money on a later episode. But I wanted to cover today this application. I think is great for everybody. If you're getting started in the business, this is a fantastic little application, and it's called Land Glide. Now, if you're familiar with it, and you may have been familiar with it, I thought, okay, well, when I first saw it, I said, oh, that's fine and everything, but there's other ways, and there are, and we'll cover different ways. But if you're just starting out, rather than go out there and try and deal with a local tax assessor and try and get a list or buy these leads that are astronomical, which I refuse to do. I've never bought a list in my life from any commercial company. It's either it's everything I do is I buy it directly from a real source, not like a real estate source guy. Oh, okay, we're selling leads. Okay, so no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a company that's a legit big operation. Usually they're multi-million-dollar operations, and they're just tapped in, just like this company here. I wouldn't mind buying my list. There are companies that do, but they're hard to find, and they don't stay around that long. That's what I find. So what I've had to do is just modify and figure out other ways, because I want a business that lasts for a long time. The techniques that I'm talking about and going over with you today, these are the same techniques I was using 35 years ago when I got into business. In fact, I'm doing the exact same thing, except we have computers now, but the technique is the same. The technique has not changed. Houses is not the same. The basic, it changes all the time. Every year it changes in the house market, so you have to kind of keep up. But in the land business, so steady, and even in good times and bad times. When I started out, the economy was in a wreck. We had like 20% interest rates back then, and but it didn't translate into the land side. It's just funny. Anyway, this app is called Land Glide, and you can download it for both Apple or Google Play for the Android. And what it does, it will open up, and it gives you the tax. Basically, it's pulling the tax records from all over every county, almost every county, not every, but I think that it's like 98% coverage is what they say. I don't know. I haven't tested it, but every place I have gone to so far on the app, it does show that, I can go right in there and get the owner's information, which is all you need. All right. I was talking a little bit earlier about sellers and who I deal with, who I buy with, and why I don't buy from people who have their property up for sale, because they want more money than somebody who's got it like a bike in a garage, ready just to kind of drop it and not have to deal with it, not want to list it. They don't want to do anything. They just want a decent price, whatever that is, okay, and that's all over the place, and then they're ready to move on. So what I want to do is kind of go in and show you how we do this. Now, the very first and most important thing that I'll tell you is that I like to deal with people out of state, called absentee owners. So people who live out of state, but they have property in the state that you're looking at. Because the further away they are from this property, the more likely it is that they're going to just want to just drop it at whatever they can get for it and move on. That is important. So if I am looking, and I'm going to use Houston and the surrounding area as an example here, to give you to show you how this kind of works, but the concepts are probably more important because it applies to any list that you get. So the further away they are, the more motivated they are to get rid of it. And number two, they can be in the state. If you've got a big state like Texas, if they live in Dallas, hey, that's to me out of state. If you live in Austin, out of state. So as soon as you get away from one metropolitan area into another one, you can basically have a motivated, and that goes for every state. I'd say Texas because we have so many like that, but every state is like that. And so keep that in mind. Is that's our customer. That's the base. That's the seller that we're after, and so I can skip over all these other records and all these other lands, so I'm not wasting my mailing dollars on locals who they'll tend to know the market better. They tend to say, "Oh, I'll be moving there someday, so I'm not wanting to sell." That's not the person I want. If I'm in Texas and you're in California, odds are you're not ever going to move back here to this property that you've had for 30 years. It's just not going to happen. You were at a different place. You were in college. I talked to a guy the other day. I bought that, was in college. I don't even know why I bought it. Me and my brother went in on it, and I've just been paying taxes on it all these years. Does that sound like a motivated seller who's ready to just deal with whatever I gave him? And he did, and he took it. And then he called his brother up and said, "Look, we finally got somebody to get rid of this darn thing so they don't have to deal with it anymore." So that's the mentality. That's the mindset we're looking for. All right. So what this does, it opens up, and I've pinned a couple just to give us some examples here. But what you're going to do is you're going to like scroll in with your fingers, as you know how to scroll in. Before you do that, change it to a satellite. The way you do that is you click this settings button, and that will change it to the satellite, so you can kind of see what we're looking at, because we want to look at the property and be able to tell. And you might as well start where you live, because this is the easiest. This method here I'm going to go over, obviously it's easier if it's in your own backyard. Can you do it long distance? Yes, but you're going to probably hire somebody on Craigslist to run out there and put a for sale sign up in front of it, and we'll be going over that later as well. But keep in mind, this is kind of a balanced system. I'm just going to go through this one piece at a time. All right, so change it to satellite from the settings, and then once you do that, go ahead and scroll in. Now, I use this as an example just to show you what you're looking for, because not every neighborhood works. If you're in one of these little tic-tac box neighborhoods where it makes a very pretty pattern on the thing, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We're close to it with this one, by the way. You see the patterns. You can see the pattern already. I usually stay away from that, but when I see a lot of green, that means a lot of trees. That means vacant lots in there. So that's the key. That's what you're looking for. If you see just a bunch of housetops from the top of the Google map that you're looking at here, you can just skip it and move on. That's like a newer neighborhood. We don't even want newer neighborhoods. We want older neighborhoods. This neighborhood right here was actually built in the 80s, because I've pulled up some more information since I'm working this neighborhood, now that I'm pulling up information on it. And that's ideal. I mean, neighborhoods from the 80s are perfect. Almost every one of them is just perfect for what we're doing, or before, from the 80s and before. So you get into Harris County, for example, or Dallas County, wherever you might be, then you're going to see old neighborhoods, and you're going to see where they've torn down houses, in essence, and you've got a vacant lot, and that becomes a very sellable lot. So that's what we're looking for vacant lots here, and we're using Google to do it, so we're not having to drive around and waste gas and time, because what I'm describing here is something that, instead of when you go out and you're sitting and waiting someplace, and as you normally do, as we all do, we pull out our iPhone or whatever, and we start to go through Facebook. Instead of going through Facebook, go to this thing right here and start going through this, and follow this system that I'm going to be showing you right now as I get into that. Afro Investor, thanks, John. This is Nathan. Hey, Nathan, good to see you, buddy. So happy to see you're teaching real estate again. You're my favorite teacher always on the frontier of innovation. Are these calls recorded to be viewed at another time? Thank you much for that. And yes, they are being recorded. But as you know, with technology today, you cross your fingers and hope. However, there's a couple of, just one of the reasons why I like Twitch is a backup system. They record into Twitch. So if you are if you have an account with Twitch, then you're able to log back into my Twitch channel after I go off, and just allow the system to upload, and it's going to actually upload this video in there, and then you can watch it again. So So what we're going to do here is we're going to when you kind of find an area, and as I go in, you'll see what I'm talking about and what to look for. But this little information down here is a link. So by just clicking your finger on it, uh, it's going to open up and or yeah, it's going to open up and it's going to show you the details. All right. So what I did is I started at the bottom of a road, and I'm going to follow the road path all the way up, all the way down. I'm just going to go up and down this road, just like this. I'm going to cover an entire block because I see a lot of vacant, lots in there. In essence, all treed in, which is what you're looking for. All right, so what you do is you go to each one of these. This is why it takes a little time, but you just click with your finger. Just click on this one, and it's going to pop. It's going to pop up the information right here. So when you click it, it's going to show you the details of that owner. So in this case, when I clicked it, it shows me the address here, Arlington, Texas. Now that's on the other side of Texas, home of the Cowboys. Go Cowboys. But I'm looking for anything outside my area. Most of the time when you click this, you're going to see that city most of the time. All right. And this is the ones you're looking for. So now this is the one I want. If I wanted to investigate a little bit more, they have this county link here. You can click on it and it actually will bring up the full tax record on that property, which is pretty nice. All right. So once you say, oh, okay, well, that person's out of state or out of the area, absentee owner, I'm going to drop a pin in it. So you come back into the settings area up here. It's going to drop this little drop down again, and you can hit drop pin, and boom, you've dropped your pin on there. Now that's recorded in there, and you can move on and keep punching these vacant lots, and you can see very obviously the ones with houses compared to the ones with treed in. So you're only tapping on the treed in lots, and so I'm tapping here, here, here before I found my next one. Here, 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 and then right around the corner here, I found my next one. All right, so that's the idea. Right there. I went on just in this block that you see right here, and I had 8 of them. 8 out of state, and most of them all out of state. One guy in the Philippines, which is a great motivating because I went and looked up his record, and he owes $2,000 in back taxes. These lots right here are selling for $30,000 to $40,000, probably in that range, depending on where they are. But most of them, and who's buying them. There's a builder in here. I found a builder just tapping on some of the blocks. That becomes a potential buyer too. So I write their names down because if they're buying in that area, they may want to buy another one and build in there. But it's hard to find people selling lots. If you pull this up on the Realtor.com, you're not going to see anybody selling lots here because there's nobody selling a lot. Most people, it's not like houses, as I said. So this is proactive. You got to go find it. And maybe that one house that the builder bought, one piece of property the builder bought, was one that out of all of these did get listed on the MLS, and that's why they bought it. Because most realtors buy off the MLS unless they're buying whole subdivisions and developing out themselves. Okay, so now in here I've got 8 of these, and now what you want to do is you want to go back into the settings area again by clicking right here, and then you want to go and click save locations. Now here's where the power comes in. Once you hit the save locations, you get another drop down box. This was just another one, just an example. I just want to throw it in here. This was one right around the corner. This guy's in St. Paul, Minnesota. All right, so I'm in Houston. Okay, so anyway, after you hit the saved settings, you come up and it will show you a list of all the ones that you hit with a pin. And now you can go ahead and click your save button up here and then email it to yourself is what I like to do, because it's going to email a Excel, not an Excel, but a CSV file to you. And I think I have it here. Yeah, I do. So here's when you go in there and click and get your email clicked into, this is what it's going to look like. So you'll have the name of the people. Click up here, slide that over a little bit. All right. So you'll have the name and the address of the people. Sometimes the address is here. Sometimes it's over here under mailing address, which is what you want. Um, and the city and state and everything you have is right there. All right. So you'll get this. You've also got the parcel ID number. So if you want to do a little investigating, you can. I don't do too much because I'm not going to do too much investigating on anything until I get a response back from a seller saying, "Hey, I want it. Yeah, what will you give me for the property?" Which is basically all they tell you, and then you'll say, "Well, let me look into it and let me give you a call back." And then what you do is at that point, you go and do all your research on the property. So I mail out whatever I'm mailing out, but I haven't researched it. I will usually research it only to the degree that I know basically what the properties may be selling for. You can call a realtor to find out. You can, if nothing's listed, you can call a realtor and find out. When whatever the last sales were in the area, they should be able to find it for you. And this is how you start to get to know a neighborhood and an area. So I'll work that entire area. That's one neighborhood out of a block. That's one block out of a vastly big area. It's like a little city not too far from me, about 15 minutes from me. So I'll ultimately work that entire neighborhood. I worked one right south of there, and here's an example of what I found there. So what I found there is little tiny lots that I can buy for $3,000 and sell for $12,000. Again, that's a real common scenario for us. Buy them for three or less. Sometimes you get them for less, and then sell them for 12 to 15,000. That's just a real sweet spot in my market, and it changes. So you got to go find out what the changes are. Now, where do I get that $12 to $15,000 mark? Well, hey, Frutus 2000. Hey, welcome. Thanks for the follow. How do you figure that out? Well, whatever the last sale was that they do have on the marketplace, now that I'm going to just divide it in half. So if in this neighborhood we're looking at the last sale or the last few sales were around the $30,000 area or 20,000, boom, divide by half. So that's what I'm going to sell at, and I'm going to pad it a little bit, obviously, to get a little negotiating room with my buyer. But I'm gonna push it between. So I'm gonna push it up, from there. So that means I got to buy even lower than that. All right, that's where we come in with that 3,000, 6,000, 7,000, $8,000 level. I mean, I'm just really just trying to. I'm just carving by the thousands off. When I'm trying to buy a transaction from somebody. But that neighborhood that we looked at, that's a really nice area. It's got some really nice houses in there. And I will ultimately just do whatever I need to do to get a contract. One of the things I've taught for many years is that when you first start out in a neighborhood or an area, and especially when you start out in a new area, all right, so you've never worked the area before, the most important thing that you can do is get a contract. And I don't care what the price is. You need to get a deal going with a seller. The very, very first thing and the very most important thing is to get a contract going. And this is obviously going to come up later, but and we'll go into that, how to do all that. But it's the concept that we're talking about today. Get into a contract, and then it tells you you're going to know your market after that. That's how you learn your market, is by actually jumping in and getting a contract going, throwing up some ads on, for example, Craigslist, or put up a sign. I mean, that's the full extent of my advertising on every one of my properties: Craigslist and a sign for these kinds of deals. I do other deals as well, and some of that my eBay stuff. That's even cheaper lots, which is different. That's what I do for fun on the side of this business. So. But this is the key. This is what you want to do. Just get into that first deal. Learn your market on that first deal. Now, after that, every seller you talk to, man, you've got a war story already now because you understand the market. You've already been there. You've done it. You already know what the prices are. No one's going to tell you, no one's going to BS you on what the price should be, buyers or sellers. But you've got to get in there and play with that first deal. That's why I say, if somebody just said, look, John, if you put a contract on there for $100,000, which I know is stupid, right? And it would never happen. I'll do it. I'll take that contract. I'll put that contract, and then I'm going to try and flip it. And I'm going to put a price on $120,000 and try and flip it, and make that kind of money. See if that works. And if it doesn't work, what am I going to do? What's the worst possible thing? It didn't cost me anything. It cost me some time to learn my market. Now I've got buyers saying, you can't. I can buy it for this amount of money over here. Oh, okay. So you're buying for $20,000, $25,000, the next buyer says. Now, what does that tell me? It tells me where I can sell at. It tells me I've got buyers that will pay me 20, 25, whatever they're talking. Then that's how you find out. Ultimately, that's how you find out. Man, the first time I did a land flip, I mean, I had an advantage there because I was following on my dad's footsteps, and he already knew the market. But when I moved and had to learn it myself, this is what I figured out. Okay, that's how you really learn your market. You just jump in there. And I've used that successfully every time. So I don't care where I open up. This is why I'll buy anywhere. I buy all over Texas. I don't like to go outside my state because you learn your state law. Wherever you want to operate this business, learn that state's laws because they're different in every state. Learn the laws, and you can. And it's not that hard. It's not difficult to learn the laws. They're called property code. Just pull up that state property code online, put a search on Google saying whatever Alabama property code, and you're going to pop up your property code, and then there's just within there just a few chapters that you actually really need to understand and know. But you certainly want to go over that over and over until you kind of get it. And I do suggest the first time you do it, if you've never done real estate investing before, keep a lawyer by your side on your first deal. Let them walk you through and kind of overshadow you and watch your first deal. That way you know that you're not in violation of any of the laws in that state, because they're all different. This is why I stick with my own state. I've been here my whole life, so I know them, and I grow with them as they change. And then so this is the other side. So pick a state, stay within that state. Try not to cross state lines because it just gets so confusing. Do you know we have a if I do some land deals in Florida, I have to change my documents just because the notary seal, there's a requirement there that you have to have 2 witnesses. Well, we don't have that in our state. In most states, they don't have that. Kind of a stupid thing to actually have anyway. But they do have it. So, if you don't do that, then you don't have a valid legal document. So this is why, if you've never done any real estate, get a lawyer to look over your first deal. And if you're on a budget, the easiest way to do that is to maybe join one of those legal shield things, because they offer free, a free consultation for your first deal. And that's all you need. You just need one. And boom, you're in there. Okay, so I think that's mainly what I want to cover. What kind of questions do we have today? Here in New Jersey, it's rare for affordable vacant land. I wish I could name my own price. Well, that's because if you're trying to buy from somebody selling land, this was the very first thing I started out with, and you might have come in late. If you're going after somebody who's put land up for sale, guaranteed that you're in a whole different ball game. This is not what you want to be in. This is why you've got to go and look for the out-of-state owner and deal with them. And that's the only people I deal with, and why I get such good deals. They're the person with a bike in the garage, and if you offer them $5 for that, they'll say yes for the bike. So since these land deals are cash deals, are you using the IP? No, I don't use the IP at all. At all, really. All of these are what we call a double close. So a double close is where I'm putting a contract to pay cash onto the property. And I'll give you this. This is something we're going to cover on our next session, but I'm just give you a real quick overview of it. Let's say I can buy a property for $3,000. Little piece of vacant property for $3,000. It's treed over. As you can see, most of these are just treed over. So I get on a contract for $3,000. I then sell it for $15,000. Hey, welcome, LU Walk, as that's how you pronounce it, 5447. Welcome, thank you for the follow. And so once I get on a contract with my end buyer, I ask for what? A earnest money deposit. How much is the earnest money? $3,000. What you're going to learn in the land business, and we don't deal with titles, that money goes from them to me into my pocket. So I've got that down payment, but in essence, it's the earnest money they're giving me. I owe total on the property $3,000, so I can take that money, send off to the seller. I get my deed, and then I come back and I can transfer a deed to my end buyer. Now, maybe I took a down payment. Maybe I sold it for $15,000. I took $5,000 down payment. I asked for a $3,000 deposit, $2,000 more at closing, and then maybe I can even finance the rest. Where am I at the end of that deal? I'm at this. I've got $2,000 extra in cash in my pocket, and I've got a big note that they're paying me monthly on. And most of my notes are $500 notes a month. So if you're buying a piece of property from me like this in this area, you're paying me $500 a month on the payment. So that's the concept. Most of the time, though, I'm cashing out. So I'm selling it for, let's say, if I finance it, it's $18,000, for example. If I get cash, maybe it's $12,000. So I made a $10,000 cash profit on it, just like that. So that's the idea. That's the concept. That's how I leverage in. Why I don't need the IP. Why I can double close everything. I don't have to bring in transactional funders and pay somebody else and have somebody else having to, waste time, make me waste time on the deal. It's very fast. I want speed. You've got to scale this. You've got to have a fast system, and I've developed a fast system. I've got some databases I'm going to show you as you develop your business. I can help you grow that side of the business if you want, just to make it scalable. Otherwise, you're going to find, you can handle 1 or 2 or 3 deals a month, but the money is when you're handling, 10, 20, and 30 deals a month. So that's really where you want to get to. Do you use to search title? Who do you use to search title? I have a book. It keeps popping up here in my feed called Trust, Land Investors Trust. Let me bring up my hold on one second. In a book I have a book that's that actually explains so much of actually what we're going over right now in this. So I have a book, this one right here, Living Trust for Real Estate Investors. Now in that book, it's actually going to go through and show you how to do your own title searches. So I do all my own title searches. Now, can you and should you hire that out? If you're just beginning, the answer is definitely yes. You should hire that out to somebody else, because if you don't want to take the chance of messing up, and when you're just starting out, you probably don't. I know you don't. You don't know enough to catch it. So, when you're first starting and you're learning the business, you can go online and I use Pro Title. I have a link. I'll put the link up, or we'll cover it next time, actually, when we get into that. But for like $170, $180, you can have a title search done online, and it's the same one that you're going to get at a title company. And so, but that saves you from not having to go to the title company again. Again, we avoid them. That's just a lot of expense on land. It's not worth it. I explained that in this book. I explained why you don't go to title companies, or you shouldn't go to title companies if you're dealing in this low-end land. Now, there's a difference once you get up into the $60,000, $50,000, $60,000 level difference in land. But we're dealing with the lower-end properties. And if you are in, like I said this to somebody online, if you're in New York or California on the coastline, you're not going to find these cheap properties. You have to go, you have to move, get that map out and move around. If you're in California, you can go right into the Inland Empire and find these exact deals. And they're there. You just have to go out, keep going further and further until you find the deals that are in that area. And the quick way to figure that out is go to realtor.com and start looking at the prices of land in those areas. So there's some filters in there you can utilize to do that. The easiest filter in realtor.com, by the way, is to filter by price. Instead of trying to say, okay, well, I'm looking only for land, because that doesn't filter right in realtor.com. But using realtor.com is probably the quickest way to get into some of the pricing levels, at least for a property. There's some other things we'll cover later on, but that's just in a general sense a way to do it. And just invert it so that it's going descending from price, and that way you can see the cheapest properties that are for sale in a given area. So once you kind of tag an area, let's say that area that we were looking at today, then you can just kind of go in there and find that area, and then find some land that's going from, you can start to get an idea there. Hey Pam, welcome Team APAC. Okay, thanks Pam. Who do you use for that title search? Okay, we covered that, so that was you. Okay, great. All right. Well, any other questions before we? I have. I'm gonna, in this next session, I'm gonna show you. Or I'm going to show you how you can get all the paperwork that I use on a transaction. And I'm talking about everything. Every piece of paper that I have and I put into a database. This way, I fill out information one time, and now I have it for both sides of the transaction. When I'm buying it, including the legal and everything, and the sell side. Let me see if I think I have something up. I don't think it's right there on that one. Let me go over here. But it doesn't make it good. All right, so here's a classic example of that. So I use an autofill system. So you go in here and you just click in here and you autofill all your information in one time. And there's not a lot. Look, this is actually for a deal. This is the most complicated deal that I deal with. And that is where I'm going to buy a piece of property, and now I'm selling it. And most of this is already filled in when I bought the property. So it's, so you've got this information there. But now you're up to selling it. So what am I going to sell it for? Here's all my financing. This is all the financing stuff you need to put in. Again, these are my typical deals here. So once you put that in there, then you update the record. I also have this system where just to make it legal, and if you guys are doing your own stuff, you know what I'm talking about. But instead of trying to copy out a legal description into your deed, all right, which looks like this part right here, lot 7, that's actually a picture. All right, so in my system, the way I devise my systems, and how you can use the same system, by the way, I have it where I can just do a screenshot of the legal. Now, it doesn't matter how big this is. If this thing is, half a page long or 2 pages long, it's still going to fit in here. It's going to push all of this stuff, the deed and stuff. It's going to push it down. But look, it does your closing statement for you. It does a purchase contract. When I'm selling this is the sell side, right? And so it gives the letters that get sent out, and down to notice of contract for deed, where I'm going to file this with the county to lock in my deal, and then my notary request, because I close so much of this when I'm buying or selling. I might be closing on, across state lines or something. So what you do here is you upload a picture. You just have a picture of that. You take a screenshot of legal, and then you can go right here and upload it. Just like you can upload your logo, and your logo, see, there's my logo. So it automatically puts it in all this stuff too. So it basically creates your entire package. Now you can copy that all out, and you can take it into a Word document and save it into the Word document, and then you can manipulate the data, or if you need to change something later, you can do that, and then you save it as a file. So you can do both sides. You can do your purchase and your sell side minus whoever the name and address of who you're selling it to and the ultimate price. But that's all you're going to fill in on the second side of the document. So basically, it's filled out. But it's still the system, a database system, makes it easier. And then once you get to the next level, above that, where you're just doing you're just doing numbers. Right now, I think I have active 35 land transactions going right now. And when you're dealing with those kinds of numbers, then you need a one step above that database. And I have that. And I have to, and just to make my life easier, I have a VA that does all that. She's the one that puts all that in there. She does everything. All I do is come in, I oversee it, I just make sure it's all right. I'm going to double check everything. I do the title search, again, myself, just to make sure that's done right. But she actually does a lot of the title work now herself because she can catch the easy stuff. So if I see that there's a lien or something, so obviously, then she could catch it and she'll put that in the notes. So this is the way you can ultimately set up and scale your business as big as you want, or you can keep it fairly small. You can do what we talked about today with this system here. And when you download this Excel spreadsheet, you can just write out a letter. I mean, I have everything that I need to make instant letters, and so I keep everything like with that hands grip. So I have envelopes, I have envelopes, I have letters, I have stamps. Now everything, as you can see, you've got to keep your office in a way that you can get to all this really important stuff fast. Otherwise, you just don't make time for it, and you say, okay, I'll get around to it. So if you make it easy on yourself, get all your supplies and keep them ready. So when you have a deal, that phone will ring, and I can tap into open my computer, put in just a few pieces of information, and I can print out my contract and everything and have it in the mail the same day, because I don't want people to sit on anything. I don't want them to think about it. I don't want them to. And I want to be efficient with them because they appreciate that as well. And then they want to do business with you. Any other questions? Jay Brayford, hey John, your old Beacon program student. Oh man, I was just going through some of the old Beacon files the other day. I found some, opened them up. Just man, that's some old stuff. I was going, man, we were buying notes at that price. It was incredible. Back then we had like 2 and 3% discounts on notes for somebody with 550 credit score, if you can believe that. But man, those were some great days. But you know what? Today the great days is in the land business. So I kind of like, I figure out where the best places in real estate for where I want to be. One of the reasons why I like land is I don't have to go out and go through these stinky, ugly houses. I've done that before. I just don't like it. I don't even like smelling a house. I don't mind going out to a land, smelling a tree. They smell great. Maybe, pop up a sign real quick on the tree is what I do. There's just a handwritten sign. So that's my marketing, and a Craigslist ad in most cases. And it's the same Craigslist ad. I just copy and paste it, and I change it out. In fact, my Craigslist ad is in the database. So when that's all being created, the ad's automatically created. So all I'm doing is copying and pasting it and going to Craigslist and paste it into there. You want to copy paste your business. You want to systemize your business because it makes it easy to do. It doesn't become a drag on you, although everything becomes a drag at some point. And so that's when you bring on somebody else to help you with the parts that are dragging, and then you have your life back. So the ideal thing was not to be working from morning till midnight every day on a business where you didn't, you're making good money, but you weren't able to scale it. So there's a lot of things that go into what I think would be considered a successful real estate business. It's got to be scalable. That's like the number one thing. Whatever you're going to do, that depends. If you want to make more money. So a lot of people you can stay small. I mean, you can make great money, just doing it as a small part-time business. So you do 1 or 2 pieces of property a month, and you're probably, even at even at those levels, that's life changing, just life changing. Even if you did one every 2 or 3 months, that can be a big change for people. So you figure out what your level is, you figure out what you need, what you want, and keep a happy life at the same time, because it's all about balance. And the older I get, the more important time is to me. And so I'm always looking at, well, how do I cut down work time and get more free time? Because free time for me is running out. When you get to be 60, you start to say, wow, how much free time do I have left? And then now it becomes really important. It wasn't that important in my 30s and 40s and even at the early 50s. But man, your mind shift starts to change, and you realize, I mean, you start to see some of your buddies die, and that really is a eye opener. You say, okay, well, let me make sure that whatever I'm doing is making the kind of money I need to get me where I need, how I want to live, and the rest of my life as well. And my dad was a great example of that, because at 89, when he passed away, 2 weeks before he died, I was on the phone talking to him about a deal he was still flipping. You want to work just like he did. You want to work till the last day, because the worst thing they say, is to retire, because it's a death sentence. So, the concept here is find something that feels good, is not super stressful. This business, I found, is not super stressful like houses were. Houses were a lot more stressful. And the environment is completely different too. You have everybody and their mother being a wholesaler out there, and they're undercutting you. They're stealing your deals. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on out there in that world. And we're in a world here where these sellers have never even talked to anybody. Yeah, they might have gotten a few letters, but yeah, it didn't work. And so now they're calling you, and boom, done. So I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Thanks everybody for coming in.